The recruitment station on Zorax Prime hummed with activity as beings from across the galaxy lined up to join the Galactic Empire's military forces. Commander Krell, a 7-foot-tall reptilian warrior with scales that shimmered like polished obsidian, watched the proceedings with his 4 eyes narrowed in concentration. He had seen thousands of recruits over his century of service, but today would be different. Among the towering Gorvax and the multi-limbed Zentari, a single human stood in line. Marcus Chen looked almost comically small next to the other recruits, his 5'10" frame dwarfed by aliens who averaged 8 feet in height. His plain gray jumpsuit and worn combat boots seemed primitive compared to the bio-armor and energy suits worn by others. "Next," the automated voice called out, and Marcus stepped forward to the scanning platform. The recruitment officer, a 6-armed Valtorian named Drex, looked down at the human with barely concealed amusement. "Species, human, planet of origin, Earth, Sector 947. Are you certain you wish to apply for the Imperial Combat Division?" Marcus nodded calmly. "Yes." Drex's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. "The Imperial Combat Division is not for smaller species. Perhaps you would be better suited for logistics or communications." "Combat Division," Marcus repeated, his voice steady. Commander Krell watched this exchange with interest. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They were considered a curiosity more than anything else. Soft, fragile beings who had somehow managed to survive on a death world through cooperation rather than physical superiority. The scanner hummed to life, bathing Marcus in blue light. Standard procedure, checking for diseases, cybernetic enhancements, and combat readiness. What appeared on the screen made Drex's 6 eyes widen simultaneously. "There must be an error," Drex muttered, running the scan again. The results remained the same. Physical conditioning, exceptional. Reaction time, 3 seconds. Pain tolerance, abnormal. Bone density, 40% above human baseline. Muscle fiber composition, optimized for both endurance and explosive movement. "No error," Marcus said quietly. "I've been preparing for this my whole life." Krell stepped forward, intrigued. "Your physical scores are impressive for a human, but they still fall well below our minimum requirements. A Gorvac warrior can bench press 2 tons. A Zentari can run at 60 miles per hour. What makes you think you can compete?" Marcus met the commander's gaze without flinching. "Because I don't need to be stronger or faster, I just need to be smarter." The recruitment hall fell silent. Several aliens turned to stare at the small human, who dared to suggest that intelligence could overcome the raw physical power that had dominated galactic warfare for millennia. "Interesting," Krell mused. "Very well, you will be given the standard trial period. Report to Training Base 7 at 0600 tomorrow. If you survive the first week, we'll consider making your position permanent." As Marcus walked away, Drex shook his head. "Commander, with respect, the human will be killed within days. The training alone has a 15% fatality rate for species twice his size." Krell's tail swished thoughtfully. "Perhaps. But did you notice his eyes, Drex? No fear, no doubt. I've seen that look before in veterans of 100 campaigns. That human has seen combat." "Impossible. Earth's military forces are primitive. They still use projectile weapons and chemical explosives." "Yes," Krell agreed, which makes his confidence all the more intriguing. The next morning, Marcus arrived at Training Base 7 to find 49 other recruits already assembled. They represented the finest warriors from a dozen species, all of them bigger, stronger, and more naturally equipped for violence than any human. The Gorvax stood like living mountains, their stone-like skin impervious to most energy weapons. The Zentari crouched on all 6 legs, their razor-sharp claws extending and retracting nervously. A pair of void dancers floated above the ground, their bodies phasing in and out of visibility. Training Master Yorak, a scarred veteran of the Andromedan Wars, surveyed the group with disgust. 50 recruits. If half of you survive to graduation, I'll be amazed. The Galactic Empire doesn't need soldiers. It needs weapons. Living, breathing, thinking weapons who can face the horrors of the void without breaking. His eyes, all 8 of them, fixed on Marcus. And what do we have here? A human? Did you get lost on your way to the cafeteria, little one? Nervous laughter rippled through the group. Marcus remained silent. First exercise, Yorak announced. Combat simulation. You will face a holographic swarm drone. These are based on our enemies in the outer reaches. Fast, deadly, and utterly without mercy. Survive for 1 minute, and you pass. Fall, and medical will attempt to save your life. Emphasis on attempt. One by one, recruits entered the simulation chamber. The Gorvaks used their brute strength to smash through the drone's attacks. The Zentari relied on speed and agility. The Void Dancers phased through danger. Most lasted the full minute, though several emerged with serious injuries. Then it was Marcus's turn. He entered the chamber empty-handed, refusing even the basic energy blade offered to recruits. The room shimmered, transforming into a war-torn cityscape. A swarm drone materialized 20 meters away, a nightmare fusion of insect and machine with blade limbs that could slice through steel and a carapace that deflected most weapons. The drone charged. What happened next would be replayed in training videos across the Empire for years to come. Marcus didn't run. He didn't dodge. He took 3 measured steps forward, timing them perfectly. As the drone's blade limb swept toward his head, he dropped to one knee, letting the attack pass overhead. His hand shot up, grabbing a specific joint in the drone's leg. A sharp twist, using the creature's own momentum, and the limb separated with a crack. Marcus rolled backward, coming up with the severed blade limb in his hands. The drone, programmed to adapt, recalibrated its attack pattern. It lunged again, but Marcus was already moving. He used the improvised weapon not to strike, but to redirect, tiny movements that turned killing blows into near misses. 30 seconds passed. 45, 55. With 5 seconds remaining, Marcus did something unprecedented. He stopped defending and attacked. 3 precise strikes, one to what would be a nerve cluster, another to a joint, and a third to the drone's optical array. The hologram flickered and died. The simulation ended. In the observation room, Yorak stared at the replay in disbelief. Computer, analysis of the human's combat pattern. Combat style, unknown. Closest match, 87% correlation with extinct Phantom Brigade techniques. Note: this is impossible, as no human has had contact with Phantom Brigade archives. Commander Krell had been watching from the back of the room. He stepped forward, his interest now fully engaged. Master Yorak, I want that human assigned to advanced training immediately. Sir, he's only completed 1 exercise. Did you see what I saw? He didn't just survive that drone. He dissected it. He knew exactly where to strike, exactly when to move. That wasn't luck or instinct. That was training. Word of the human's performance spread quickly through the facility. By lunch, every recruit knew about Marcus Chen, the tiny human who had made a swarm drone look clumsy. Some were impressed. Others, particularly from warrior cultures, were insulted by the idea that such a small, weak being could outperform them. Grak, the largest of the Gorvak recruits, cornered Marcus in the mess hall. You got lucky, human. Tricks won't save you in real combat. Marcus continued eating his protein ration, seemingly unconcerned by the 800-pound rock being looming over him. You're right. Tricks won't save me. Then you admit you don't belong here? No. I said tricks won't save me. Training will. Experience will. and the willingness to do whatever it takes to win. Marcus looked up at Grak, and for just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Something cold and ancient and utterly devoid of mercy. "Would you like a demonstration?" Grak stepped back involuntarily, then caught himself. How could he, a warrior born and bred, feel threatened by this tiny creature? "The sparring rings, after evening meal. We'll see how your tricks work against a real opponent." News of the challenge spread like wildfire. By the appointed time, half the training facility had gathered around Sparring Ring 3. Even some of the instructors had come to watch, curious to see if the human's performance had been a fluke. Marcus entered the ring wearing standard training gear, form-fitting fabric that would register hits without providing any actual protection. Grak wore the same, though on his massive frame it looked like it might tear at any moment. "Standard rules," the automated referee announced. "Victory by submission, unconsciousness, or accumulation of points. Lethal strikes are prohibited and will result in immediate disqualification." Grak charged the moment the bell rang, moving with surprising speed for his size. His fist, larger than Marcus's entire head, swept through the air with bone-crushing force. Marcus wasn't there. He had moved, not away but toward Grak, sliding under the punch and delivering 3 rapid strikes to what would be pressure points on a human. On a Gorvak, they should have been useless. Their stone-like skin had no pressure points. Grak grunted in surprise. The strikes had actually hurt. "Impossible," someone in the crowd muttered. "Gorvak skin can deflect plasma bolts." Marcus danced away from Grak's retaliatory swipe, his movements economical and precise. He wasn't trying to match the Gorvak's strength. That would be suicide. Instead, he was doing something far more devastating. He was taking Grak apart piece by piece. Each time the massive alien attacked, Marcus redirected the force, using Grak's own strength against him. A slight touch here caused a punch to overextend. A gentle push there sent Grak stumbling off balance. And always, those precise strikes to specific points on Grak's body. "He's not hitting randomly," one of the instructors observed. "Look at the pattern. He's targeting the exact points where Gorvak muscle fibers connect to their skeletal structure." But how could he know that? "Gorvak anatomy is classified military information." After 5 minutes, Grak was breathing heavily, his movements noticeably slower. Marcus hadn't taken a single hit, dancing around the ring like a ghost. More disturbing, Grak's left arm was hanging slightly limp, the result of accumulated damage to specific nerve clusters. "Enough playing!" Grak roared, abandoning technique for raw fury. He charged like a living avalanche. Marcus stood his ground until the last possible second, then dropped and rolled between Grak's legs. As he came up behind the Gorvak, his hand shot out in a perfect spear hand strike to a point at the base of Grak's skull. The massive alien toppled forward like a felled tree, unconscious before he hit the ground. The ring fell silent. Marcus bowed respectfully to his fallen opponent, then turned to leave. The crowd parted before him, a mixture of awe and fear in their alien eyes. Commander Krell intercepted him at the edge of the ring. "That technique you used to finish the fight. I've only seen it once before in classified military archives. It's a Zerion nerve strike, developed specifically to combat Gorvak warriors during the Second Galactic War. No human should know it exists, let alone be able to execute it." Marcus met the commander's gaze steadily. "I read a lot. Reading about a technique and performing it are very different things. That strike requires precise knowledge of Gorvak anatomy and force application measured to the 100th of a Newton. Too little, and it does nothing. Too much, and you kill instead of incapacitate. Then I guess I'm a good reader." Krell's tail lashed in agitation. "Who are you really? Marcus Chen? Your official record says you're a colonist from Earth's Mars settlement, but colonists don't move like you do. Colonists don't have the kind of muscle memory that takes decades of combat to develop. My record is accurate, Marcus said simply. I am from Mars. I am human, and I am here to serve the Galactic Empire. But my past is my own, Commander. Unless it affects my performance, I'd prefer to keep it that way. Over the next weeks, Marcus continued to confound expectations. Every training exercise, every simulation, every sparring match ended the same way, with the human victorious and his opponents wondering how. He never seemed to tire, never showed fear, never made the same mistake twice. More disturbing were the little things, the way he could disassemble and reassemble any weapon after seeing it once. The way he always knew when someone was behind him. The way he sometimes moved before an attack came, as if he could predict his opponent's actions. I've run his DNA 3 times, the medical officer reported to Krell. He's human. No genetic modifications, no alien ancestry, no cybernetic enhancements. Just a baseline human who somehow performs at levels that should be impossible. What about his psychological profile? That's where it gets interesting. His stress hormones barely spike during combat. His brain patterns during battle simulations are almost meditative, and his pain response, Commander, I've seen void dancers with less pain tolerance. It's as if he's trained himself to simply ignore physical discomfort. Krell studied the reports, his unease growing. What about his background check? Clean, too clean. Mars colony records confirm his birth and residence, but there's a gap. 5 years where he simply doesn't appear in any database. 5 years, Krell mused. Long enough to receive extensive training, but from whom? Earth's military academies are good, but not this good. The mystery deepened when Marcus began helping other recruits. Not with encouragement or moral support, but with specific, technical advice that dramatically improved their performance. You're telegraphing your strikes, he told a struggling Zentari. Your third shoulder joint twitches 0.3 seconds before you attack. Any experienced opponent will read it. Your stance is too wide, he advised a void dancer. I know your species manual recommends it for stability during phase shifts, but it leaves you vulnerable to leg sweeps in material form. Each piece of advice was perfectly tailored to the species and individual, demonstrating a breadth of knowledge that should have taken centuries to accumulate. The turning point came during a live-fire exercise in the facility's zero-gravity chamber. Recruits were tasked with boarding a mock enemy vessel while under fire from automated defense turrets. It was considered one of the most challenging exercises, with a 40% injury rate even with safety protocols in place. Marcus's squad consisted of himself, 2 Gorvaks, a Zentari, and a rookie void dancer who had barely passed basic training. They were up against a scenario designed for full Imperial Marines, elite soldiers with years of experience. Stay behind us, human, one of the Gorvaks growled. This is real combat, not sparring practice. Marcus didn't argue. He simply checked his equipment one final time and waited for the exercise to begin. The moment the airlock opened, everything went wrong. The defense turrets, supposedly calibrated for training, opened fire with full lethal force. The first Gorvak took a plasma bolt to the chest, his training armor barely protecting him from instant death. System malfunction! Someone screamed over the comms. Abort exercise! But the airlock had sealed behind them. They were trapped in a killing field with malfunctioning turrets that would cut them down in seconds. That's when Marcus took command. Vorik, Grend, magnetize your boots and advance in overlapping cover formation. Use your natural armor to shield the others. Skitter, you're with me. Phase shift on my mark to draw fire. Newbie, stay low and watch our 6. The authority in his voice was absolute. The others obeyed without thinking, their bodies responding to the command presence of someone who had clearly done this before. Marcus moved through the zero-gravity environment like he was born to it, using momentum and micro-adjustments to dance between plasma bolts. He wasn't just dodging, he was calculating firing patterns, identifying safe zones, predicting where the turrets would target next. "Turret 3 has a 0.7-second recycle time," he called out. "Skitter, phase shift now!" The Zentari vanished just as a concentrated barrage passed through the space where she had been. In that moment of distraction, Marcus launched himself at the turret's base, a small device in his hand. "Where did you get a magnetic disruptor?" Grend gasped. "Made it from my boot magnets and comm unit while you were talking," Marcus replied, already moving to the next turret. "Standard Imperial tech is too modular for its own good." Within 4 minutes, all turrets were disabled. The squad had survived with only minor injuries. As emergency crews finally cut through the airlock, they found Marcus calmly administering first aid to the injured Gorvac. "How?" Commander Krell demanded later, reviewing the footage. "How did you know exactly how to exploit each turret's weakness? That firing pattern analysis, those tactics, I've seen identical methods used by the Ghost Brigade during the Andromedan conflict." "Lucky guess," Marcus said. "Stop." Krell's voice carried the weight of command. "No more evasions. A training system malfunction nearly killed 5 recruits today. You saved them with skills no human should possess. I need the truth." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, seeming to weigh his options. Finally, he spoke. "The truth, Commander, is that I came here to serve. My past is complicated, but my loyalty to the Empire is absolute. That's not enough, not anymore. Then what would be enough? A full confession? A detailed history of every battle, every kill, every mission that made me who I am?" Marcus's voice remained calm, but something shifted in the room's atmosphere. "Would you really want to know, Commander? Would you want to know what it takes to forge a human into something that can stand alongside the galaxy's apex predators?" "Yes," Krell said without hesitation. Marcus stood, moving to the window that overlooked the training grounds. "Have you ever heard of Earth's history, Commander? Really studied it?" "The basics. Tribal warfare evolving into nation-states, nuclear age, near self-destruction, eventual unification, and stellar expansion." "The sanitized version," Marcus said softly. "Let me tell you about the real Earth. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Not through overwhelming force like many death worlds, but through cunning. Diseases that adapted faster than we could cure them. Predators that hunted in packs, using tactics and ambush. Weather that could change from calm to catastrophic in minutes." He turned back to face Krell. "We survived by becoming the most dangerous thing on our planet. Not through strength. Plenty of animals were stronger. Not through speed. We were laughably slow compared to our predators. We survived by being smart, adaptable, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. That explains your species. Not you specifically. Doesn't it?" Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Tell me, Commander, what happens when you take a species forged by that kind of evolutionary pressure and give them modern weapons? What happens when you tell them that there are threats among the stars that make Earth's worst nightmares look tame?" "They prepare," Krell said slowly. "We prepare," Marcus agreed. "Some of us more than others. Some of us dedicate our entire lives to being ready for the day when humanity needs warriors who can stand against the darkness." "You're talking about a secret military program." "I'm talking about evolution, Commander. Natural selection in its purest form. Take Earth's most dangerous predators, its humans, and push them further. Train them from childhood. Break them down and rebuild them into something more. Not through genetic modification or cybernetic enhancement, but through pure, relentless conditioning." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "The 5-year gap in your records," Krell said, "among other things. How many others are there like you? Does it matter? I'm here. I chose to leave Earth, to join your empire, to put my skills to use protecting something larger than one species or one world." "Why?" For the first time since arriving at the facility, Marcus showed genuine emotion, a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that seemed to age him decades in an instant. "Because I'm tired of fighting alone, Commander. Tired of wars nobody knows about, against enemies nobody remembers." The Empire offers something Earth never could, a purpose beyond mere survival, a chance to be part of something that might actually last. Krell studied the human for a long moment, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time, not as a recruit or a curiosity, but as a weapon, honed to deadly perfection and looking for a worthy cause to serve. "The review board will want to know about your background. Tell them whatever you think is necessary. But remember, Commander, I'm not the only human who will come looking to join your ranks. Earth is full of people like me, trained in different ways for different wars. Some through official programs, some through necessity, some through paths you wouldn't believe if I told you." "Are you a threat to the Empire?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "I'm a threat to the Empire's enemies." "There's a significant difference." That night, Krell submitted his report to the Imperial High Command. It was short, direct, and would change the Empire's recruitment policies forever. Subject: Human Recruit Marcus Chen. Recommendation: immediate acceptance into Special Operations Division. Note: recommend establishing specialized integration program for human warriors. Their physical limitations are offset by tactical capabilities that border on precognitive. Whatever Earth has been doing to prepare its soldiers, we want them on our side when the real war comes. The next morning, Marcus received his official acceptance into the Imperial forces. He was assigned not to the regular combat division, but to the elite Phantom Brigade, the Empire's most secretive and lethal special operations unit. As he packed his few belongings, other recruits approached him. Some offered congratulations, others asked for final pieces of advice. The Void Dancer he'd saved during the turret malfunction pressed a small crystal into his hand, a gesture of life debt among her people. "You never told us," she said softly. "How many battles have you really fought?" Marcus pocketed the crystal with a nod of thanks. "Enough to know that the ones coming will be worse. Train hard. The Empire will need every one of you before this is over." As he left the training facility, Commander Krell watched from his office window. In 50 years of military service, he had never encountered anyone quite like Marcus Chen. The human's combat skills were impressive, yes, but it was something else that truly unsettled the old warrior. It was the way Marcus looked at the universe, not with the fresh eyes of a young recruit, but with the 1,000-yard stare of someone who had already seen the worst the galaxy had to offer and survived it. Someone who knew with absolute certainty that darker days were coming. The Empire had accepted a human fighter, thinking they were getting a curiosity to study. They had no idea what they had truly recruited. 6 months into his service with the Phantom Brigade, Marcus Chen had become something of a legend among the Empire's special forces. The briefing room on the Imperial Dreadnought Stellar Hammer fell silent as he entered. Every operator present keenly aware they were in the presence of something unprecedented. Captain Thex, a Xerion warrior with biometallic skin that shifted colors with her mood, gestured to an empty seat. "Agent Chen, glad you could join us." Marcus nodded, taking his place among the galaxy's deadliest soldiers. To his left sat Vec, a Gorvac demolitions expert whose body count supposedly exceeded 10,000. To his right, Whisper, a Void Dancer assassin who had eliminated entire governmental chains of command without being detected. Yet somehow, the human made them nervous. "Our target," Captain Thex began, activating a holographic display, "is the Crimson Syndicate's stronghold on Nexus 7. Intelligence suggests they've acquired a prototype quantum disruptor capable of destabilizing jump gates across entire sectors." The room tensed. Jump gates were the lifeblood of galactic civilization. Without them, faster-than-light travel would take decades instead of days. "Defenses?" asked Kor, a heavily augmented Zentari. Significant. Energy shields rated for capital ship bombardment, automated defense platforms, and approximately 3,000 syndicate soldiers, including a full company of Ravager mercenaries. Several operators shifted uncomfortably. Ravagers were genetically modified killing machines, each one capable of tearing through a squad of regular soldiers. Insertion method? Marcus asked quietly. That's the problem, Thex admitted, her skin shifting to a troubled orange. Their shields extend into subspace, making stealth drops impossible. A frontal assault would require a full battle fleet, which would give them time to activate the disruptor. So we need a way in that they won't expect, Marcus said. Something that bypasses their shields entirely. Impossible. Those shields are state-of-the-art. Nothing gets through except... Vex stopped mid-sentence, his rocky features shifting to what might have been horror. No, you're not seriously suggesting... Marcus pulled up technical specifications on his datapad. The Syndicate's shields are designed to stop energy and matter, but they have to allow certain things through, or the stronghold couldn't function. Light, for instance, gravitational forces, and most importantly, quantum entanglement signals for their communications. You want to quantum tunnel through their shields? Whisper's voice was barely audible, but the disbelief was clear. That would require breaking down to subatomic particles and reconstructing on the other side. The energy requirements alone are manageable if we piggyback on their own quantum communications array, Marcus finished. I've done it before. The room went silent. When? Thex demanded. Quantum tunneling technology is theoretical at best. No one has successfully transported living matter. Earth year 2387, Operation Nightfall. Marcus's voice was flat, matter of fact. Classified beyond your clearance level, Captain, but the short version is that humanity faced a threat that required impossible solutions. We developed the technology out of necessity. One-way trip, 90% fatality rate for the operators involved. But it worked. 90% fatality rate, Core repeated. You're talking about suicide. I'm talking about acceptable losses, Marcus corrected. But that was with primitive human technology. The Empire's quantum processors are far more advanced. I estimate we can get the risk down to maybe 30%. Still too high, Thex said firmly. I won't authorize... With respect, Captain, Marcus interrupted. What's your alternative? A frontal assault would cost thousands of lives and might fail anyway, waiting for diplomatic solutions while they have a weapon that could cripple galactic infrastructure? Sometimes the high-risk option is the only option. Vec leaned forward, studying Marcus intently. You said 90% fatality rate. That means 10% survived. Were you one of them? Marcus met the Gorvak's gaze. I was the only one. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a shroud. Out of what was clearly a full team of operators, Marcus alone had survived something that killed 90% of those who attempted it. How many were on your team? Whisper asked softly. 40 started the mission. 4 made it through the tunnel alive. 3 died from quantum dispersal syndrome within minutes. I completed the objective. His voice never changed, relating the deaths of 39 teammates with the same tone someone might use to describe the weather. And the objective? Thex pressed. Neutralization of a rogue AI that had taken control of Earth's planetary defense grid. It was turning our own weapons against our cities. Conventional assault was impossible. The AI controlled every electronic system on the planet. We had to get someone inside its core facility to manually destroy the quantum processors. One person against an AI-controlled facility? One person with nothing electronic that could be hacked, Marcus confirmed. Purely mechanical weapons. Purely biological systems. It took 17 hours. Core's augmented eye whirred as it focused on Marcus. 17 hours of combat against an AI's defenses. How many did you face? For the first time, Marcus hesitated. I stopped counting after the first 1,000. The AI could manufacture combat drones in real time. For every one I destroyed, 2 more would appear. The only advantage I had was that it couldn't predict human irrationality. Every time it adapted to my tactics, I did something crazier. Such as? A ghost of a smile touched Marcus's lips. At one point, I convinced it I had gone insane from the pressure. Started talking to imaginary friends, acting erratically, even injuring myself deliberately. The AI diverted processing power to psychological analysis. Trying to predict the actions of a madman. Gave me the opening I needed to reach the core. You pretended to be insane? Who said I was pretending? The smile vanished. 17 hours of non-stop combat against an enemy that learns from every move you make, watching it use your own tactics against you, seeing the faces of dead teammates in every drone it sent, sanity becomes flexible. Captain Thex made a decision. Show us the schematics for this quantum tunnel approach. If it's viable, we'll consider it. Over the next hour, Marcus laid out a plan that was equal parts brilliant and terrifying. Using stolen syndicate quantum signatures, they would piggyback a signal into the Stronghold's communication array. The Empire's advanced processors would maintain molecular cohesion during transport, theoretically allowing living beings to survive the process. Theoretically, Vec emphasized. You're asking us to trust our lives to untested technology based on a human military operation that killed 90% of its operators. No, Marcus said calmly. I'm asking you to trust me. I'll go first. If I don't survive, abort the mission. If I do, I'll secure the arrival point for the rest of you. Alone, in the middle of a syndicate stronghold? I've had worse odds. 3 days of preparation followed. The Phantom Brigade's tech specialists worked around the clock to adapt Marcus's human designs to Imperial technology. The fusion wasn't perfect. Human intuition paired with alien precision created something that no species would have developed alone. The night before the mission, Whisper found Marcus in the ship's observation lounge, staring out at the stars. I accessed your classified files, she said without preamble. Captain Thex gave me permission. I needed to understand what kind of warrior would propose such a plan. Marcus didn't turn around. And? Operation Nightfall was just the beginning. Operation Blackwater, single-handed elimination of a terrorist cell that had acquired antimatter weapons. Operation Void Strike, infiltration and destruction of a quarantined research station experimenting with biological weapons. Operation Last Light, the Mars incident. You shouldn't have clearance for that last one. I don't. The file was redacted beyond recognition. All I could determine was that it involved a single operator, you, and resulted in casualty figures that required scientific notation to express properly. Now Marcus did turn, and Whisper took an involuntary step back. His eyes held depths that seemed to swallow light. Sometimes, he said quietly, winning requires doing things that haunt you forever. The Mars incident. That was one of those times. How do you live with it? The weight of all those operations, all those deaths? By focusing on the lives saved. Every operation I completed prevented something worse. Every enemy I eliminated was one who couldn't hurt innocents. The arithmetic of war is simple. You trade the lives you must to save the lives you can. And if the arithmetic requires your own life, then I've already lived longer than I expected. Marcus turned back to the stars. Every day since Operation Nightfall has been borrowed time. Might as well spend it doing something worthwhile. The next day, the Phantom Brigade took positions around Nexus 7. The quantum tunneling equipment had been assembled in the Stellar Hammer's modified cargo bay, a massive ring of exotic matter generators and quantum processors that hummed with barely contained energy. Marcus stood in the center of the ring wearing nothing but a skin-tight suit designed to maintain molecular cohesion during transport. No armor. Metal would interfere with the quantum field. No energy weapons. They would destabilize during transport. Just Marcus, a selection of purely mechanical weapons, and the kind of courage that bordered on insanity. Quantum field initializing, the tech specialist announced. Molecular scan complete, beginning particle acceleration. Marcus felt the familiar sensation of his body beginning to lose cohesion. It started as a tingling, like every atom vibrating at a slightly different frequency. Then came the pain, every nerve firing simultaneously as his consciousness struggled to maintain integrity while his physical form dissolved. "Stay focused," he muttered to himself, reciting the mantra that had saved him once before. Name, Marcus Chen. Species, human. Mission, survive and complete the objective. The world dissolved into probability clouds and quantum uncertainty. For an eternal instant that lasted no time at all, Marcus existed as pure information, streaming through subspace toward an uncertain destination. Then, with a sensation like being torn apart and reassembled by a blindfolded surgeon, he materialized inside the Crimson Syndicate stronghold. The arrival room was empty, a storage area deep within the facility. Marcus had 60 seconds before the quantum residue would trigger internal sensors. He moved immediately, ignoring the agony of molecular reconstruction. Blood ran from his nose and ears, but he'd expected that. The human body wasn't designed for quantum tunneling. 45 seconds. He reached the door, using a mechanical lockpick to bypass the electronic security. The corridor beyond was exactly as intelligence had mapped it. 30 seconds. Marcus placed signal beacons at strategic points, mechanical devices that would guide the rest of his team to safe arrival zones. 15 seconds. He could hear footsteps approaching, a patrol on routine rounds. 5 seconds. Marcus pressed himself into an alcove, drawing a ceramic blade that had survived the transport intact. 0. Alarms shrieked throughout the facility. The patrol, 2 Ravager mercenaries, came running around the corner. They were exactly as advertised. 3 meters tall, covered in bioarmor, with reflexes enhanced to superhuman levels. Marcus moved before they could react. The ceramic blade found the gap between helmet and chest plate on the first Ravager, severing its spinal cord. He used the falling body as a springboard, launching himself at the second mercenary's face. His fingers found eye sockets, applying pressure at precisely the right angle. Both Ravagers were dead in under 3 seconds. "Arrival zone secured," Marcus whispered into his mechanical comm unit. "Begin second wave transport." What followed was a battle that would be studied in Imperial military academies for generations. As the rest of the Phantom Brigade materialized at their designated points, Marcus carved a path through the stronghold's defenses with methodical precision. He moved like a force of nature, every action calculated for maximum effect. When confronted by a squad of Syndicate soldiers, he turned their own formation against them, using angles and timing to ensure they couldn't fire without hitting their comrades. When cornered by automated defense turrets, he used the bodies of fallen enemies as shields, advancing meter by bloody meter. Captain Thex, arriving with the second wave, found Marcus in the Stronghold's security center. He had disabled the internal defenses and was covered in blood, most of it not his own. Around him lay the bodies of at least 30 Syndicate soldiers. "How?" was all she could ask. "They relied too heavily on energy weapons and electronic targeting," Marcus explained, wiping blood from a deep gash on his forehead. "Take those away and they're just scared beings with guns. I've fought scared beings with guns my entire life." The mission proceeded with brutal efficiency. Vec demolished key structural points, while Whisper eliminated high-value targets. Core held the perimeter against reinforcements. And Marcus? Marcus did what he did best. By the time they reached the quantum disruptor, the kill count had become academic. The Syndicate threw everything they had at the Phantom Brigade, and most of it died trying to stop one human who seemed to know exactly where each attack would come from. "It's like he can see the future," Vec muttered, watching Marcus redirect a grenade with a perfectly timed kick that sent it back into an advancing squad. "Not the future," Whisper corrected, her voice filled with something approaching awe. "He sees patterns, attack formations, movement rhythms, tactical decisions. He's fought so many battles that combat has become predictable to him." The quantum disruptor stood before them, a massive crystalline structure thrumming with impossible energies. Vec immediately began setting charges while the others held the perimeter. That's when the Syndicate played their final card. "Omega Protocol activated," a mechanical voice announced. "All personnel evacuate. Facility self-destruct in T-5 minutes." "They're going to destroy their own stronghold rather than let us have it," Core snarled. "How long to disable the disruptor?" Thex demanded. Vec's rocky features were grim. 7 minutes minimum. The crystal matrix has to be destabilized in sequence or it'll detonate." "Then we all die," Whisper said simply. "No," Marcus said, checking his remaining weapons. "You disable the device. I'll buy you time." "Against what? The entire facility is about to—" The doors exploded inward. Through the smoke came the Syndicate's last resort, 50 Ravager mercenaries armed with everything from plasma cannons to molecular disintegrators. Behind them, Marcus could hear more coming. "Go," he said quietly. 2 extra minutes. That's all you need." Before anyone could protest, Marcus charged into the enemy ranks. What happened next defied every law of combat the Phantom Brigade knew. A single human, already wounded and exhausted, faced odds that would have challenged a full platoon of Imperial Marines, and somehow, impossibly, he held them. Marcus didn't fight like a soldier. He fought like a natural disaster. Every movement flowed into the next, creating a dance of destruction that left bodies in its wake. He used Ravagers as shields against their own allies' fire. He turned their strength against them, redirecting attacks into devastating friendly fire incidents. He moved through their ranks like a ghost, never where their targeting computers predicted, always where they least expected. 60 seconds, Vec shouted, his fingers flying over the disruptor's control matrix. Marcus had been shot 4 times, stabbed twice, and had lost enough blood to kill a normal human. He kept fighting. When his ammunition ran out, he used captured weapons. When those failed, he used his hands. When a Ravager broke his left arm, he used it as a club. 30 seconds! The enemy had learned to fear him. These genetically modified super soldiers, designed to know no fear, were actively trying to avoid engaging Marcus in close combat. They hung back, relying on ranged weapons, giving ground rather than face the blood-soaked human who simply would not fall. "Done!" Vec roared. "Disruptor neutralized!" "Everyone out!" Thex commanded. "Chen, disengage!" Marcus looked back at them, and in that moment, they saw the truth. He had known from the beginning. 2 minutes was exactly how long it would take. He had calculated his own death with the same precision he calculated everything else. "Go," he said, blood running from his mouth. "I'll hold them." "We don't leave anyone behind," Thex protested. "You're not leaving me." Marcus smiled, and it was genuine. "I'm choosing to stay. There's a difference." The facility shook as the self-destruct sequence entered its final phase. With no other choice, the Phantom Brigade retreated, Core physically dragging a protesting Thex. Their last sight of Marcus Chen was the human standing alone against an army, laughing as he invited them to come die. They barely made it to minimum safe distance before Nexus 7 detonated. The explosion was visible from orbit, a brief new star that consumed the stronghold and everything within. "He's gone," Whisper said quietly. "No one could survive that." Aboard the Stellar Hammer, the Phantom Brigade held a moment of silence for their fallen comrade. Captain Thex prepared to write the after-action report that would officially list Marcus Chen as killed in action. Then the communication system crackled to life. "Phantom Brigade, this is Chen. Request immediate medical evacuation. Coordinates follow. The bridge erupted in chaos. It was impossible. The stronghold had been vaporized. Nothing could have survived. They found him 3 kilometers from the blast site, in an emergency shelter that had been blasted clear by the explosion. He was more dead than alive. Massive trauma, radiation poisoning, burns over 60% of his body, but his heart still beat, and his lungs still drew breath. "How?" Thex asked, as the medical team worked frantically to stabilize him. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "Maintenance shaft, led to old mining tunnels. Syndicate probably forgot they existed, rode the blast wave out, hurt like hell." "You planned this. You knew about the tunnels." "Always have an exit strategy." His eyes closed. "Even if you don't expect to use it." The trip back to Imperial Medical Command was touch and go. 3 times, Marcus flatlined. 3 times, the medical team brought him back. Whisper later swore she heard him arguing with the medics, insisting he had work to finish. The debriefing took place in Marcus's medical room, where he lay in a regeneration tank filled with healing gel. Even through the blue liquid, his scars were visible, a roadmap of violence that covered nearly every inch of his body. "The disruptor has been secured and destroyed," Admiral Crace informed him, her insectoid features unreadable. "The Crimson Syndicate's leadership is in disarray. You saved potentially millions of lives." Marcus's response came through the tank's communication system, distorted but clear. "Just doing my job, Admiral." "Your job nearly killed you. Again." She consulted her datapad. "I've been reviewing your complete file, Agent Chen. Not just the classified operations, but the medical records. Do you know how many times you've been clinically dead?" 17. 18, counting today. Most species don't survive death once. You've made a habit of it. Hard to kill something that's already dead, Admiral. I should have died on Operation Nightfall with the rest of my team. Everything since then has been overtime." Admiral Crace was quiet for a moment. "The Empire's medical technology can repair your body, Agent Chen, but I wonder if we can repair what these battles have done to your mind." "My mind is fine." "Is it?" "You charge into impossible odds without hesitation. You calculate your own death as a tactical variable. You show no emotional response to trauma that would break most warriors. That's not fine, Agent. That's conditioned detachment taken to pathological extremes." Marcus was silent for so long that Crace thought he might have fallen unconscious. Then, "You're right. I'm not fine. Haven't been since long before nightfall. But being fine isn't my purpose. My purpose is to stand between the innocent and the darkness, to be the monster that hunts other monsters. The Empire needs weapons like me, Admiral. You know it, or you wouldn't be here." "What I know," Crace said carefully, "is that we've stumbled onto something unprecedented. Humanity's approach to warfare is unlike anything in galactic history. Where other species breed warriors or build them with technology, you forge them in crucibles of pure experience. The question is, what do we do with this knowledge?" "You use it," Marcus said simply. "The threats facing the Empire will only grow worse. The Crimson Syndicate was nothing compared to what's coming from the void reaches. You'll need soldiers who can do the impossible. Soldiers like you. There are others, not many, but they exist. Humans who've been pushed past their breaking points and reformed into something harder. Special forces operators, intelligence ghosts, survivors of conflicts that never made the history books. Find them, recruit them, give them purpose. And if they're all as damaged as you?" Through the healing gel, Marcus's scarred features shifted into what might have been a smile. "Then you'll have the most dangerous special operations force in galactic history. Broken weapons are still weapons, Admiral. Sometimes they're the sharpest ones." Over the following weeks, as Marcus regenerated in the tank, word of his actions spread throughout the Imperial military. The human who had survived quantum tunneling, the human who had held off 50 Ravagers single-handedly, the human who had died 18 times and kept fighting. Other human operators began arriving at Imperial recruitment centers. They came from Earth's shadow wars, from black sites and classified programs, from conflicts that existed only in sealed records. Each one was different, but they all shared the same look in their eyes, the thousand-yard stare of those who had seen too much and survived it anyway. Captain Thex visited Marcus regularly, reading him reports and updates. During one visit, she asked the question that had been bothering her since Nexus 7. The maintenance shaft. You said the Syndicate probably forgot about it, but you knew. How? Standard practice, Marcus replied, his voice clearer now that the tank had repaired his lungs. First thing I do in any facility is memorize every possible exit. Ventilation systems, maintenance corridors, waste disposal routes. Save my life more times than I can count. But to remember that during combat, while fighting 50 Ravagers, combat is when you need exit strategies most. The body fights, but the mind maps. Always be planning your next move, and the move after that, and the move after that. Eventually, it becomes instinct. Is that what Earth teaches its soldiers? Earth teaches its soldiers to survive. Everything else is just application. Thex's skin shifted to a thoughtful purple. I've been studying human military history since you joined us. Your species' approach to warfare is disturbing. You don't just defeat enemies. You break them psychologically. You turn their strengths into weaknesses. You make them fear you more than death. Fear is a weapon, Marcus agreed. Used correctly, it can end fights before they begin. Those 50 Ravagers, by the end, they were hesitating. Super soldiers designed to feel no fear, and they were afraid of one half-dead human. That hesitation bought the seconds you needed. You've done this before. Made enemies fear you. The Mars incident, Marcus said quietly. 3 million insurgents had taken the colony hostage. They had weapons, numbers, and fanatical dedication. The Imperial forces were weeks away. Earth Command sent me. One person against 3 million? One person with very specific orders. Make them afraid. Make them so terrified that they would surrender rather than face what was coming. It took 6 days. What did you do? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I became their nightmare, struck from shadows, left messages written in blood, made their leaders disappear one by one. I turned their own paranoia against them, made them see threats everywhere. By day 4, they were shooting at shadows. By day 5, they were shooting each other. Day 6, they surrendered unconditionally. The casualty figures were necessary. A conventional siege would have killed millions. My way killed thousands. The arithmetic of war, Captain. You asked how I live with it? I live with it by remembering the millions who survived because I was willing to become a monster. The regeneration tank finally drained on the 45th day. Marcus emerged scarred but whole, his body rebuilt by Imperial technology, but still fundamentally human. He dressed in a simple uniform and reported to Admiral Crace's office. Agent Chen, fully recovered, I see. Recovered enough, Admiral. What's my next assignment? Crace studied him carefully. That depends. I've been authorized to offer you a choice. You can continue as a field operative with the Phantom Brigade, or you can accept a new position, which is training instructor for the Imperial Special Operations Academy. We want you to teach our operators your methods. More importantly, we want you to help integrate the human recruits who keep arriving. Marcus considered this. You want me to create more weapons like myself. I want you to create soldiers who can face the darkness without breaking. The Empire's enemies are evolving, Agent Chen. We need to evolve as well. And you think human methods are the answer? I think human methods are part of the answer. Your species survived on a death world through adaptability and sheer stubborn refusal to die. Those traits, combined with Imperial technology and resources, could produce the finest special operations force in galactic history. It won't be pretty, Marcus warned, The training that made me what I am, it breaks most people who attempt it. The survivors are changed forever. They'll be effective, but they'll never be normal again. Normal soldiers can't do what you do. The Empire needs abnormal. Marcus stood, his decision made. When do I start? Tomorrow. Your first class includes 12 humans and 48 mixed-species volunteers. They all specifically requested the human program after hearing about your exploits. They have no idea what they're asking for. Then it will be your job to show them. And Agent Chen, try not to kill too many of them in training. For the first time in months, Marcus smiled genuinely. No promises, Admiral. The forge that makes the strongest weapons burns the hottest. As he left the office, Marcus passed a group of new recruits. They stared at him with a mixture of awe and fear, the human who had become a legend. He paused, studying them with the calculating gaze of a predator evaluating prey. "You want to be like me?" he asked quietly. They nodded eagerly, too intimidated to speak. "No," Marcus said, "you don't. But if you're lucky, you'll become something better. Something that can stand in the darkness without becoming it. Report to Training Bay 1 at 0400 tomorrow. Don't be late." He walked away, leaving the recruits to contemplate what they had just volunteered for. Behind him, Admiral Crace watched from her window, wondering if she had just saved the Empire or doomed it. Time would tell. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same, now that humanity's warriors had arrived. The Empire had accepted human fighters, thinking they understood what that meant. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Imperial War Council had convened only 7 times in the last 1,000 years. Each time marked a crisis that threatened the very existence of galactic civilization. As the assembled admirals, generals, and intelligence chiefs took their seats in the secure chamber deep within Imperial High Command, many wondered what could have prompted this 8th gathering. Admiral Crace stood at the presentation podium, her chitinous armor gleaming under the harsh lights. Beside her, Marcus Chen appeared almost insignificant, a small human in a simple instructor's uniform, surrounded by the military might of 100 worlds. "Esteemed colleagues," Crace began, "6 months ago, we began integrating human combat methodologies into our special operations programs. The results have exceeded all projections. However, in the process of this integration, we have uncovered information that requires immediate attention at the highest levels." She gestured to Marcus. "Agent Chen, formerly of Earth's classified military programs, has agreed to share the full scope of his service record. I warn you, what you are about to hear will fundamentally change your understanding of human warfare capabilities." General Thok, a massive Gorvak who commanded the Empire's ground forces, rumbled his displeasure. "We've all heard the stories. 1 human against 50 Ravagers. Impressive, but hardly worth an emergency council." "With respect, General," Marcus said quietly, "you haven't heard the full story. Admiral Crace asked me to compile my complete operational history for Imperial records. The documentation runs to over 10,000 pages. Would you like the summary, or should I start from the beginning?" "The summary will suffice," the council chairman interjected, his crystalline form pulsing with interest. Marcus activated a holographic display. Numbers began scrolling past. Dates, locations, operation names, and casualty figures. "My active service spans 23 Earth years. During that time, I completed 317 operations across 47 planets. Total confirmed enemy casualties directly attributable to my actions, 2.7 million. The chamber fell silent. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "The Mars incident alone accounted for 1.2 million, Marcus continued, his voice emotionless. Operation Crimson Dawn, 400,000. The Titan Suppression, 300,000. Project Nightfall and its follow-up operations, 200,000. The remaining campaigns average between 500 and 50,000 each. Intelligence Chief Vera, her psychic tendrils writhing with agitation, interrupted. You're claiming to have personally killed over 2.5 million sentients? No, Marcus corrected. I'm claiming responsibility for their deaths. Some I killed directly. Others died from traps I set, weapons I sabotaged, or chain reactions I initiated. The distinction matters only to philosophers. He changed the display, showing tactical maps and operational summaries. Let me provide context. The Mars incident. 3 million insurgents using the colony's 20 million civilians as human shields. Conventional assault projected 80% civilian casualties. My approach resulted in 5% civilian casualties and complete insurgent elimination. How? General Thok demanded. I turned them against each other, infiltrated their command structure, impersonated leaders, issued contradictory orders, made them believe they had been betrayed from within. When paranoia reached critical mass, I triggered their own weapon stockpiles. They destroyed themselves while trying to root out an enemy that was everywhere and nowhere. Psychological warfare, Admiral Crace added. A human specialty that we're only beginning to understand. The display shifted again. Operation Crimson Dawn. A bioterrorist network spread across 7 systems, planning to release a plague that would have killed billions. No central leadership, no way to stop them all simultaneously. So, I became a plague myself. Marcus pulled up casualty lists that scrolled endlessly. I spent 2 years hunting them, not just the soldiers, the scientists, the suppliers, the sympathizers, anyone who could rebuild the network. I made supporting their cause so dangerous that people would turn in their own family members rather than risk my attention. You killed civilians? The accusation came from Counselor Yath, whose species prided itself on honorable warfare. I killed enemies, Marcus replied. A scientist developing bioweapons is more dangerous than any soldier. A financier funding terrorism kills more innocents than any assassin. The person mixing chemicals in a hidden lab is as guilty as the one planning to release them. That's not how civilized warfare works, Yath protested. No, Marcus agreed. It's how human warfare works. We learned long ago that limiting conflict to uniformed combatants just encourages enemies to take off their uniforms. You fight the war you have, not the war you wish you had. The presentations continued for hours. Each operation revealed new depths to human military doctrine. Where the Empire's forces met enemies head-on with superior technology and firepower, Marcus had fought wars of attrition, psychology, and calculated brutality. Project Silent Night, he narrated, showing images of a frozen world. 40,000 enemy combatants using underground tunnel networks. Rather than assault the tunnels, I waited for winter. Blocked ventilation systems one by one. They had a choice, suffocate below or freeze above. Most chose freezing. It was faster. The Jade Rebellion. 500,000 fanatics convinced their leader was a god. So I killed him in front of his followers, using methods that made it clear he was very mortal. Then I hunted down every priest, every prophet, every true believer who tried to martyrize him. The rebellion died with their faith. Operation Blackwater. Enough! The council chairman's crystalline form flared with light. We understand the scope now, but these are Earth operations. Why does this matter to the Empire? Marcus shared a look with Admiral Crace, who nodded. Because Earth's enemies were just practice. The real war is coming, and you're not ready for it. He brought up new images, star charts showing the void reaches, that unexplored region beyond the Empire's borders, where ships disappeared and colonies went silent. 6 months ago, I requested access to your classified files on the Void Reaches incidents. What I found was a pattern you've been too civilized to recognize. The colonies aren't just disappearing, they're being harvested. The inhabitants aren't just dying, they're being converted into weapons. The Devourers, someone whispered, naming the fear that no one in the Empire wanted to acknowledge. We've had 12 incidents over the last 50 years, Marcus continued. Each time you've responded with containment, quarantine, and limited engagement. Each time, they've learned more about us while we've learned nothing about them. By my calculations, you have perhaps 10 years before they launch a full-scale invasion. And humanity has a solution? General Thok asked, skepticism clear in his voice. Humanity has experience. Earth's darkest secret, counselors, is that we've faced our own version of the Devourers. We call them the Hollow Ones, humans who surrendered their humanity for power, becoming something that consumed entire populations to fuel their transformation. The holographic display showed images that made even hardened warriors flinch. Twisted forms that had once been human, surrounded by the desiccated remains of their victims. The Shadow War of 2341. Never made our official histories because the truth would have broken our civilization. A cult discovered how to transform themselves into energy beings by consuming the life force of others. They took 3 cities before we even knew they existed. 20 million dead in the first month. How did you stop them? We didn't. I did. Marcus's voice carried a weight that made the chamber feel smaller. Earth Command gave me unlimited authority and told me to end it by any means necessary. It took 5 years and cost another 30 million lives, but I ended it. 30 million of your own people? Necessary sacrifices. The Hollow Ones could hide in any population, possess any person. The only way to be certain was complete sterilization of infected areas. I burned out entire hive cities to prevent their spread, used nuclear weapons on our own soil, hunted down every cultist, every sympathizer, every person who had even heard their doctrine. He paused, letting the horror sink in. By the end, Earth Command wanted to stop me. Said the cure had become worse than the disease. So I added them to the target list. Kept fighting until the job was done, then turned myself in for trial. They gave me a medal and classified the entire war. You're describing genocide, Counselor Yath said, his voice shaking. I'm describing survival. The Hollow Ones would have consumed Earth's entire population if I hadn't stopped them. 50 million dead versus 8 billion. The arithmetic of necessity. Admiral Crace stepped forward. The point, esteemed counselors, is that humanity has experience with existential threats. We've learned that some enemies can't be negotiated with, can't be contained, can't be fought with honor or mercy. They can only be exterminated. And you believe the Devourers are such an enemy? I know they are, Marcus said with certainty. I've studied every report, every piece of recovered data. They're following the same pattern as the Hollow Ones, testing our defenses, learning our weaknesses, growing stronger with each feeding. When they come in force, your conventional military will be useless. So, what do you propose? The chairman asked. Full integration of human warfare doctrine. Expand the Special Operations Program. Train your soldiers to fight without rules, without mercy, without the civilized constraints that the Devourers will exploit. And prepare your populations for the reality that victory might require sacrifices that go against everything the Empire stands for. The debate that followed was heated. Many counselors were appalled by the human approach to warfare. Others, particularly those whose territories bordered the void reaches, were grimly supportive. Through it all, Marcus stood silent, letting his record speak for itself. Finally, General Thok asked the question that hung unspoken in the air. Agent Chen, your body count exceeds that of some entire armies. How does one being become responsible for so much death? Marcus met the Gorvak's eyes. By accepting that someone has to be. Every operation I conducted, every life I took, someone else would have had to do if I hadn't. The difference is that I was good at it. Better to have one person carry that burden than spread it across thousands. And the psychological cost? Irrelevant. I was broken long before the major operations began. Earth's training programs don't create normal soldiers. They create weapons. The only question is whether those weapons are aimed at enemies or innocents. You speak of yourself as a weapon, not a person. Because that's what I am, what I chose to be. A weapon can kill millions without hatred or malice. It simply fulfills its function. The hand that wields it bears the moral responsibility. And who wields you now? Marcus gestured to the assembled council. You do. The Empire. I've given you my skills, my experience, my knowledge. Use them wisely because once you walk this path, there's no going back. Every cadet I train, every operation I plan, adds to a body count that's already beyond comprehension. The vote, when it came, was closer than anyone expected. By a margin of just 3 votes, the Council approved the expansion of human military integration. It was a decision that would reshape the Empire's approach to warfare forever. As the Council dispersed, Admiral Crace found Marcus standing on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Regrets?" she asked. "Always, but regret doesn't change necessity." 2.7 million, she said softly. "I've commanded fleets in major wars, and my total casualty figures don't come close to that." "Fleet combat is clean," Marcus replied. "You fire from a distance, ships explode, numbers on a screen. You don't see faces, don't hear screams, don't smell the burning, don't watch light fade from eyes that look just like yours. Yet you kept fighting. Because someone had to. Because I was good at it. Because each kill prevented 10 more. The arithmetic of war, Admiral. Simple math written in blood." They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars that held both wonder and threat. "The training program starts next week," Crace finally said. "Your first full class of 60 recruits. They won't all survive. I know. But the ones who do will be weapons. Like me. Broken, efficient, and necessary." Marcus turned from the window. "Is that what the Empire truly wants? To take bright young beings full of honor and hope and turn them into killers who measure success in body counts? If it means survival against the Devourers? Yes." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then let's begin. But remember this conversation, Admiral. Remember that you had a choice. When your pure warriors come back as scarred killers who jump at shadows and can't sleep without nightmares, remember that you asked for this." The next week, 60 recruits gathered in Training Bay 1. They came from across the Empire, humans who had volunteered for the program, and aliens who wanted to learn the secrets of human warfare. They stood at attention, eager and nervous, unaware of what awaited them. Marcus entered the bay, and the temperature seemed to drop. He surveyed the recruits with eyes that had seen too much, calculating who would break, who might bend, and who might possibly survive intact. "I am Marcus Chen," he began, his voice carrying easily through the massive space. "Former operative of Earth's classified military programs, current instructor for the Imperial Special Operations Academy. My confirmed body count exceeds 2.7 million sentients." Several recruits visibly paled at the number. "Over the next year, I will attempt to transform you from soldiers into weapons. Most of you will fail, some will die, others will quit when they realize what they're becoming. A few will complete the program but be too psychologically damaged for field work. If 5 of you become operational, I'll consider it a success." He began walking among them, studying each face. "You think you want this? You've heard the stories, seen the glory, imagined yourself as heroes. Let me correct that delusion. Heroes don't do what I do. Heroes don't burn cities to save nations. Heroes don't torture information from prisoners because millions of lives hang in the balance. Heroes don't wake up every night seeing the faces of people who had to die because letting them live would have been worse." A young human woman raised her hand. "Then why do it?" Marcus stopped in front of her. "What's your name, recruit?" "Sarah Chen, sir. No relation." Tell me, Sarah Chen. No relation. What would you sacrifice to save your home world? Would you kill 100 enemies? 1,000? 1,000,000? Yes, sir. Would you kill 100 innocents if it meant saving 1,000,000,000? Would you destroy a city to prevent a plague? Would you become the monster that other monsters fear? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. No, Marcus said flatly. You wouldn't. Not yet. You still have a soul, a conscience, lines you won't cross. My job is to erase those lines, to break you down until only the mission matters, until the arithmetic of war becomes more real than your own morality. He returned to the front of the room. Your first lesson begins now. Pair up. You will fight until one of you can't continue. No rules, no restrictions, no mercy. Those who refuse to truly fight will be expelled immediately. Those who hold back will be expelled. Those who show compassion will be expelled. Begin. The recruits hesitated, looking at each other uncertainly. They had expected training, not immediate brutality. I said begin, Marcus roared, and 60 beings suddenly discovered what fear sounded like. Over the following months, the training program became legendary throughout the Empire. Stories leaked out despite security protocols, tales of psychological torture designed to break emotional bonds, combat exercises with live ammunition, survival scenarios where recruits had to choose between their morals and their missions. Marcus drove them relentlessly, stripping away every civilized instinct, every hesitation, every weakness that enemies could exploit. He taught them to fight with weapons, without weapons, with their minds as much as their bodies. He showed them how to turn enemy strengths into weaknesses, how to make opponents fear them more than death. But more than techniques, he taught them the arithmetic of war. Scenario, he would announce during classroom sessions. Terrorist cell has hostages in a school. 100 children, 10 terrorists. They'll kill 1 child every hour until demands are met. Negotiation team estimates 50% chance of peaceful resolution in 10 hours. Options? The recruits would discuss tactics, strategies, negotiation techniques. Marcus would listen, then provide his answer. Maximum acceptable losses. 5 children. Immediate assault. Accept collateral damage. Ensure no terrorist survives to inspire others. 5 dead children prevent 50 dead children and discourage future hostage situations. Arithmetic. But those are innocent lives, a Zentari recruit protested during one session. Yes, Marcus agreed. And you'll remember everyone. Their faces will haunt you. Their families will curse your name. But 50 living children won't know you saved them. That's the trade. Your soul for their lives. One by one, recruits broke. Some quit, unable to accept what they were becoming. Others were removed when psychological evaluations showed they were enjoying the violence too much. A few died during live fire exercises, learning too late that Marcus's warnings had been literal. But some endured. Some learned to think like Marcus, to see warfare not as glory, but as mathematics. To accept that preserving civilization sometimes required acts that civilized beings couldn't commit. Sarah Chen No Relation became his star pupil, absorbing lessons with a determination that reminded Marcus of himself decades ago. During a hostage simulation, she made the call to sacrifice 3 team members to save 30 civilians, then completed the mission solo. How do you do it? She asked him after one particularly brutal exercise. How do you make those choices and live with them? You don't live with them, Marcus told her. You exist with them. You function despite them. You remember that every hard choice prevented a worse outcome. And you never, ever forget that you're not a hero, you're a necessity. Is that enough? It has to be. The final test came in month 11. The remaining 12 recruits, 5 humans, 3 Gorvaks, 2 Zentari, 1 Void Dancer, and 1 Zerion, were given a scenario that Marcus had designed personally. Colony ship Harmony has been infected by devourer parasites. 10,000 civilians aboard, including 3,000 children. Infection rate is 40% and climbing. The ship is 4 days from an inhabited system with a population of 2 billion. No cure exists for devourer infection. The ship's crew is begging for help. You have weapons lock. Decide. The recruits studied the scenario, running calculations, searching for alternatives. Marcus watched their faces, seeing the moment when each realized the truth. Sarah was the first to speak. Fire. Immediately. 10,000 deaths to prevent 2 billion. The arithmetic is clear. Others nodded agreement, though several looked sick. The void dancer was crying. A shimmer of tears that phased in and out of visibility. Execute your decision, Marcus ordered. They turned to the simulation controls, entering targeting solutions with hands that shook. The holographic display showed the colony ship, transmissions still begging for help, for mercy, for time to find another solution. Sarah's hand hesitated over the firing control. 3,000 children, the Zarian whispered. 2 billion on the planet, Sarah replied. Including how many children? The arithmetic is clear, Marcus finished. But knowing the math and pulling the trigger are different things. This is your final test. Not whether you can make the hard choice, but whether you can live with it, execute or refuse. Both answers have consequences. 12 hands reached for controls. 12 recruits made their choice. The colony ship exploded in holographic fire. Simulation complete, Marcus announced. Congratulations. You're now weapons. Dismissed. As the recruits filed out, emotionally drained and forever changed, Admiral Crace entered the training bay. How many? She asked. All 12 pulled the trigger. 7 will be ready for field operations. 3 will need psychological support before deployment. 2 should be watched for excessive aggression. But they all passed. And the real colony ship? Marcus turned to her sharply. What? The Harmony. It wasn't a simulation. Devourer infection confirmed 3 hours ago. Your recruits just saved 2 billion lives. The silence stretched between them like a blade. You used my students to do what needed to be done, what you would have done, what you've trained them to do. Crace's expression was unreadable. Did you think we were playing games, Agent Chen? The devourers are spreading. Hard choices are becoming daily necessities. Your students needed to know their training has real consequences. They're not ready for that weight. Neither were you once. But you adapted. They will too. She paused. Or they'll break. But better to find out now than in the field. Marcus stared at the empty space where the holographic ship had been. 10,000 lives, ended by his students on his orders. His body count had just increased without him firing a shot. 2.7 million and 10,000, he said quietly. The arithmetic of war, Crace replied. You taught them well. That night, Marcus found his students in the observation lounge. They sat in silence, staring at the stars, processing what they had done. He joined them without speaking, understanding that some weights couldn't be lessened with words. It wasn't a simulation, Sarah finally said. It wasn't a question. No. You knew? I suspected. It was too perfect, too specific. Admiral Crace doesn't deal in hypotheticals. 10,000 people. To save 2 billion, you made the right choice. Then why does it feel wrong? Marcus looked at his students, his weapons, and saw himself reflected in their haunted eyes. Because you're still human enough to feel. When that stops, when the numbers become just numbers, that's when you're truly lost. Is that what happened to you? No, Marcus admitted. I still feel every death, 2.7 million and counting, but I learned to function despite the weight. To keep making the hard choices because someone has to. Will it get easier? Never, but you'll get stronger, strong enough to carry it. They sat together through the night, teacher and students, weapons forged in necessity, watching the stars that held both beauty and terror. The Empire had wanted to know what human warfare truly meant, and now they were learning. The next morning, 7 new operators reported to the Phantom Brigade. They carried themselves differently than regular recruits, quieter, more focused, with eyes that had seen too much. The other operators recognized kindred spirits, welcoming them with the understanding that came from shared darkness. Within a month, they were deployed to the void reaches. The reports that came back spoke of operations that defied conventional military thinking. Colonies saved through brutal calculus. Devourer infections stopped by operatives willing to burn entire cities. Enemy forces that learned to fear human tactics more than death itself. And always, the numbers climbing, the body counts growing, the arithmetic of war writing itself across the galaxy in fire and blood. Marcus continued teaching, training new generations of weapons. Each class was smaller. The psychological requirements eliminated most candidates before they even reached him. But those who survived were diamonds compressed from carbon, beautiful and terrible in their lethal perfection. The Empire had accepted human fighters, drawn by their unlikely victories and innovative tactics. They had wanted to understand what made these small, fragile beings so dangerous. Now they knew. Now they wished they didn't. But with the Devourers massing in the void reaches and darker threats stirring beyond known space, they had no choice but to embrace the monsters they had created. To accept that survival sometimes required sacrificing not just lives, but souls. In his quarters, Marcus kept a simple digital counter. It updated in real time, fed by reports from his former students across the galaxy. Each tick represented a life ended, a choice made, arithmetic calculated in blood. 2.7 million had been his personal count. The counter now showed 8.4 million and climbing. The Empire had wanted weapons. Marcus Chen had given them an arsenal. And in the darkness between the stars, enemies were learning what humanity had always known. The most dangerous predator isn't the strongest or the fastest. It's the one willing to do whatever it takes to win. The arithmetic of war. Simple, brutal, human.